Welcome to episode 26 of the Flag Stays Down podcast, the Hide Your Kids, Hide Your Wives, John Terry episode. Boys, thanks for joining once again. How are we doing on this Sunday evening?
Doing good. Yeah, it's definitely been a long week for Chelsea, kind of on and off the pitch, but yeah, we're here. So can't complain about that. Parks, how you doing over there?
Yeah, it's been a long day, kind of a draining day. The match today was just sort of physically and emotionally draining because I felt like it had a lot of moments in it. And I got to Brit's Pub at 8:30 this morning. So that leads to a long day, longer than most. So wouldn't trade it for the world though, man. It was an awesome atmosphere. Brit's is the Chelsea bar in Minneapolis and the Liverpool bar as well. So they've got two separate rooms, but there's some spillover into both camps, and place was rocking, and it was a fun atmosphere. It was a great time. Just wish the outcome came our way a little bit better, but otherwise, Matthew, I can't complain either.
Collins, how are you?
Dude, like Parker said, just drained. What did that game end up going, about 3 hours today? And between that and just the stuff from the weekend, and then Sporting Kansas City dropped a stinker today. Oh man, rough weekend. So, but again, this is my therapy, so I'm looking forward to it here. Well, let's real quick run down this week, because it was a long week, and we were all joking before the pod that we forgot that Chelsea even played in the Champions League this week. So we started on Tuesday at home against Lille in the round of 16. First leg, Kai Havertz scoring in the 8th minute. Captain America, Christian Pulisic, who had a big game, scores in the 63rd. Man of the match, Thiago Silva, man of the get the fuck out of here. Once again, his injuries. Then this weekend, Roman steps down. Don't know if it's end of Roman's reign or if it's a temporary thing to avoid sanctions. But that obviously threw a wrench into the weekend. And so then today, Sunday, Carabao Cup final. 0-0 after 120 minutes. We lose 11-10 on penalties. Kepa Arrizabalaga, the only one to miss a penalty, and he also did not save one. Whew, that's a lot.
Where do you want to start?
Let's start with today, because I feel like there's some themes that kind of just run all across it. Even going back to the Lille game, and the big one is the lack of finishing. We saw today Pulisic miss at point blank, Mason Mount miss at point blank, Mason Mount hit the woodwork again, which we all took a drink for, and then more and more offsides from Timo Werner and Big Round. It's just more of the same, seemingly every match. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if it's, everybody's just down on their form at the same time. Like, obviously we rate all these guys as, if not world class, as some of the better players in the league. It shocks me how we cannot score goals consistently. I'm curious to know what you guys saw today in regards to the finishing.
Parks, I'll let you take this one. I missed kind of the first chunk, shall we say, of all the excitement.
It just felt like it was one of those days where it wasn't going to happen. In contrast, Colin, like today just felt like it wasn't our day, and we had these really, really great opportunities, and it just wasn't happening. Versus like Tuesday, I mean, Kai Havertz could have scored a hat trick by the 8th minute when he put that goal in. I mean, it was kind of hilarious how he had these ridiculously good opportunities to start it off, and then didn't capitalize on them. But you're spot on, man. The theme of the day was the lack of finishing, and what was hard was I thought Chelsea dominated play. I thought we had a lot of really good momentum and had really good spells, and then it would lead to this moment, and then we don't capitalize, and you could just kind of feel like it's going to bite us in the ass a little bit. Like we're gonna come down to a point where we need one of these goals to go in, and we could have had 4 goals in this game easily. And I know you could look at Liverpool and say the same thing for a couple of their opportunities. But I think if both teams score their best opportunities, it's like a 4-2 game kind of a thing. And I think we created the better chances. We had the better moments. But I hate to beat the dead horse, man, but we've been saying this all year. This has been our kryptonite, is we can put the ball in these ridiculously wonderful situations, and there's no one there to finish it. The one positive I saw was when Rom came on, they were looking to break quicker and earlier and let him kind of run in on balls. And his finishing actually was decent, better than it has been. He needs to learn how to stay on side, and then we're fine. So I guess you solve one problem and you gain another in its place. So that kind of sucks. I mean, what else can you say about lack of finishing? I mean, the guys just aren't doing it at a consistent enough pace, and I think everything else is in place for these guys to have lots and lots of goals, and they're just not putting it in.
So Parker, you threw out something interesting, and I just kind of want to open this up. So you said that today was kind of one of those where, it probably wasn't our day. I feel like we've had a lot of those this season where we just kind of look at things and, was it 2-3 weeks ago where we had 3 shots off the woodwork? Like, okay, it wasn't our day. We have more of that even today with Mace. Like, it was off the post. All right, well, it's not our day. At what point do we and Parker, I think you're alluding to this perfectly, but at what point do we stop saying it wasn't our day? And it's just a lack of quality to put the ball in the back of the net. To me, I'm kind of over that phrase. Like, granted, sometimes you do have games like that. We get it. We understand. But it feels like we're using that a lot, almost as like kind of a cop out. When you look at our last month, Ziyech has been the only person, I think collectively, all 3 of us agree, the only person that we trust to score a goal. And that's one person when you have $100 million striker, over 100 mil, and you have Timo, who was brought in for 60-ish. I mean, Kai's been scoring, which is good, but he's not naturally a number 9. He's kind of come into that role. Christian is in and out. Mason is not the same player that he was last year, at least as far as form goes, or at least overall form. Cho is kind of non-existent anymore. Reese just came back. Chills is still out. I mean, where else are you going to find goals? You can't trust really Conte. You can't trust Jorginho unless it's from the spot. Kova may hit a wonder strike every now and again. Same with Rudy. We have nobody right now besides Ziyech that can score a goal. That's just the way that things are right now. And that seems to be a constant pattern where if somebody goes on a run of form for a month, it's like they trade, right? Okay, here's your month. You're going to take December. Okay, you're going to take January. Okay, you're going to take February. And then everybody else just kind of sits back and rides it out. How do we fix that? That's really the big question. How do we fix that?
That's such a painful statement, Matt. I hate that you made it because you're so right. It's such a painful statement.
Well, that is a good point, Matt. It's a great point. And let me ask you this as like a follow-up to it. Is the fact that we are consistently rotating that front 3, trying to find somebody who's in form, is that taking away from our finishing ability? Is that taking away from these guys' confidence? Or is it something else?
So let me put it to you this way. We're all employed, right? We all have jobs. We all have bosses. If your boss changes, you're still expected to do your job, right? Doesn't matter. If you get new employees, new coworkers, you're still expected to do your job. I apply that same concept to the pitch. Doesn't matter who's out there. You are still expected to put the ball in the back of the net. I don't care who the ball's coming from. If you're telling me that there's a difference between, if the same ball's coming in and you're telling me that there's a difference between one that because Cho put it in, or because Alonso put it in, or because Kai put it in, and it's the exact same ball, if you're telling me there's a difference in that, that's a problem. Exact same ball, you need to put that ball away every single time.
Yeah, and squad rotations. Oh, sorry, man.
Yeah, no, I Parks, I think I know where you're going, but like, yeah, it's a game of squad rotation, right? Like, you have to rotate people, but they're all playing the same system. They're all expected to do the same things. Your job as an attacker, put the ball in the back of the net. Doesn't matter where it's coming from, where the service is, you have to do your job. And right now, I don't like where things are at, because we have no idea on a month-to-month basis whose job it actually is to put the ball in the back of the net.
Squad rotations, it's no stranger to anyone at any club, especially a big club that has, midweek games. So I completely agree with you, Matt. I think these guys are used to rotating in and out a bit, and they're missing great chances. So like Collins, if they weren't creating great chances, I would be like, maybe there's a problem with rotation and they're not gelling together and stuff isn't clicking. But when you miss a ball that's on a platter from a yard out, it's tough to say that the squad rotation is what caused it, and I'm not saying that's what you're implying by any means, but those are balls that need to go in the back of the net. And I think we were all pulling our hair out when we saw those golden opportunities. I mean, gosh, I can't even remember who played the ball to Mace. I think it was Christian. Christian played that ball to Mace, and it was just gorgeous. And he takes it with his chest. He's by himself. He breathes the offside trap, and then he just puts it wide. And I'm like, you're one-on-one. It's like a penalty kick, and he just puts it wide. He just drags it wide, man. And it's just hard to watch. Just hard to watch.
Yeah, and okay, so those ones that are point blank, inexcusable. I'll give you that. Regardless of who is up there, you play for Chelsea Football Club. You're considered one of the best in the world. You need to put those away. I'm talking about some of those ones where maybe it's outside the box, maybe it's a difficult angle. Just having the consistency. And you guys know I love to use the other sport analogies. So you look at baseball and you see the difference between a guy who's a pinch hitter or a guy who's a rotation guy, but a platoon guy, and a guy who's an everyday starter. Typically, you're going to see the better stats out of the everyday starter because he's getting those reps day in and day out, as opposed to you're in on this day, you're only against lefties, something like that. Same in football. You only play one quarterback. When you start playing multiple quarterbacks, that's when the system starts to fail. Basketball, you look at the Bucks. When Giannis, Drew Holiday, and Chris Middleton aren't all on the court, the Bucks struggle. When they are on the court, they're probably the best team in the East. And so it just makes me wonder, because I don't know what Chelsea's best front three is. I have an idea of what my best front three would be, but the fact that it's such a mystery who's going to be playing every single game, which is kind of one of the reasons why I stopped doing lineup predictions earlier in the year. It leads me to believe that there's some kind of lack of cohesion or something caused by it. And again, I totally see Tuchel's view of, well, if so-and-so is not playing well, let me try to find somebody to be a spark. And he has hit on some of those, like Ziyech, Havertz, and players like that. But just kind of food for thought there is my thought.
I'm curious, who do you think your best front three is today? Like, who would you put out there?
I would say Ziyech on the right, Havertz up the middle. Man, that left side's such a joke. It depends on the opponent, but I'd either go Timo or Pulisic. I don't think Brown is a part of it. Mace has been shit for the better part of a couple months now. And Cho is just, I don't know what happened to Cho. He may need a loan. Well, speaking of those front three, I've got so many questions for you guys about this front three. The first one is about Kai Havertz. Big game Kai. He scored the goal to seal the Champions League, scored the goal to seal the Club World Cup, scored against Lille this week, had a boss of a game today. I mean, he had a Ziyech game where it was, I'm gonna put the team on my back. Hopefully somebody else finishes these great balls I'm putting in. We all anticipated when we signed him that this would be the Kai Havertz that that we had gone out and signed. The next wonder kid, the next one to kind of lead this Chelsea attack. And over the last couple matches and in big games, he certainly has. But we've also seen Kai struggle quite a bit, especially early this year. He was on our man of the get the fuck out of here list several times. So I have to ask you guys, is this a temporary run of form for Kai, or is this the Kai Havertz that we're going to be seeing?
I think right now, Kai is playing that number 9 out of necessity. I don't necessarily think his best position is a number 9. I think he's more of like that false 9 type role, almost kind of a free floating, kind of what we saw out of Pulisic against Lille, right? Kind of that free floating, get into those spaces between the defense and the midfield, and then let him kind of operate. I think that's when he's at his best. That being said, the way that he has taken the number 9 role and basically just owned it from Rom without question, that tells a lot about how far he's come as a player and as a person, right? When he was with Leverkusen, right? Yeah, when he was with Leverkusen, he was the creator, right? He was the one kind of doing everything and, doing his best, kind of playing that attacking mid role, kind of sitting behind the striker and things like that. He's taking it to a different level. I think that right now, Kai is your best striking option. And I think he's shown that for a while. I think even before, Timo went down early in the season, or maybe it was last season I'm thinking of, but either way, like Timo was out, Rom was out, and then Kai just took over that role without questions asked, and he's thrived in that role. I don't think it's out of his technical ability or skill set to be able to play that, but if you're looking at an overall, like where is his best fit, I think it is as that kind of false 9 attacking mid, kind of right behind the striker, a little bit more free form. But based on circumstances and where we're at now, number 9 is his, and I don't think there are any questions about that.
I love how he stepped up. I really, really do. I think to answer your question, Collins, I think for 2 reasons, it's the Kai to stay. One, I always have to remind myself that he's 22 years old. I can't believe he's only 22 years old. I will always say that on this podcast because it just blows me away. I mean, he doesn't look 22 years old, and I have to always remind myself that he's only 22. So he's a baby. He's got years ahead of him, and so I think system, what's his best fit? I think if we stick with Kai for a couple of years and we keep Thomas Tuchel for a couple of years, and we can kind of develop a system that's consistent and that is more to what Tuchel wants to play on a week in, week out basis with the people that Tuchel wants to be in that system with Kai, I think it only goes up. I think he is going to be our next 20 goal scorer in a year. I think he's that guy that can do it. It's easy to say it today just because I don't see anyone else kind of stepping up and taking that role. Obviously, if we were to sign a Holland or something, then Holland would probably be the guy to do that first. But man, I think if we kept Kai or keep him and develop some people around him that he can play with on a consistent basis, then shit, the sky's the limit for him, because he's shown all of those bits and he's coming into this form, and we're seeing him develop. And it's cool to watch. It's fun. And one of my favorite things about his game is his high press. I love the amount of pressure he puts on the opponent. He's the one going, I saw it against like Lille. He's like, come on, we're all coming up. We're all pushing up. You're here. And he's the one kind of dictating that. And I love the high press. It leads to turnovers. It leads to turnovers in the mid, which leads our guys to break. It's great. And I think it's an underrated aspect of his game.
So one additional thing, just to hop in quick, Collins, is Parker, you just hit on it perfectly. His leadership, that's something we did not see out of him early on, right? And nobody would expect that, right? He's 21 years old, coming to a huge club, going from Germany to England. Like, nobody's going to expect him to be just an outright leader from the gates. I get that. And he's had COVID, I believe, twice. So he's been out, and obviously we all know COVID affects people differently and things like that. So we don't know kind of what the whole aspects of it were, but he's taken this team and basically made it his, right? He has taken any challenge put in front of him. He's doing it at a level that you would not expect out of somebody at 22 years old and his second year at the club. You would expect that out of Thiago Silva, because he's 37, 38, and he's been everywhere and just been a known leader wherever he goes. So you expect that out of him. But that's on the defensive side. Now you're looking at the offensive side. Who are your actual leaders? If you look at everybody that we have, left wing, right wing, and striker, who are your actual leaders out there on the pitch? Exactly. Kai. Like,
sometimes, last year it was Mace, probably because he was a hell of a lot more informed, but he has fallen off the face.
Yeah, but then you look at it now. Who? You're not going to trust Rom. I think we all agree on that. Christian is too inconsistent, although he's been in better form lately. Cho, no. Mace, again, been kind of off the rails. Timo, when he gets his opportunity, he's not much of a leader. He's kind of more silent, like just down and dirty. I'm going to do my work and just give everything I have, which we love. Ziyech, I wouldn't necessarily say he's a leader, but he's creative as all hell. And in February, he's been our best player. And there's no question. But you need somebody to kind of hold everything together. And I think Kai has taken that upon himself to be that leader, because he knows that nobody else is going to do it. So he said, all right, it's on me. I'll take it, and I'm just going to run with it. And so far he has, and he's passed with flying colors.
I think, man, that point just smashes mine, but I gotta throw my two cents in anyways. One thing that's allowed him to get back into form here, and I'm hoping this is a part of his game permanently, because for a while it kind of dropped off of his game. He's sneaky. He will get down. He will get behind the defense, like that. It's no problem. It's he makes great runs. He does what Rom says that Rom does, but that we don't see. Kai is very good at causing chaos in the defense. And, it doesn't always lead to a goal, but it makes the defense respect him. It draws that extra player every once in a while. It'll, leave a center back out of position. What he does is exactly what, we said Timo did last year. And it was drawing people away, getting into crazy spots, getting in behind the defense. And we saw it a little bit out of Kai last year. We saw it a little bit at the beginning of this year, and then it kind of fell off for a while, and now it's back. And I think his run of form is directly correlated to how he makes those runs, because when he is, That's when he's at his most dangerous. That's when we're like, ooh, Kai, there he is, find him. And we need to see more of that. And I'm hoping that it's here to stay for the next, 4 months of this season, and then onward and outward.
Yeah, and if you look at the transfers that we made before Frank left, right? Ziyech, Timo, and Kai. Ziyech's hitting his stride, right? Took about a year and a half, but he's hitting his stride. It's the Ziyech that we bought, right? Took him a little bit to adjust, get to the right system, things like that. Same with Kai, right? Took him about a year and a half. We saw glimmers of it, and now we're seeing kind of, I wouldn't say the end product, but we're starting to see the full blown, like, what we paid for, right? We paid for something like that. Timo's tough, right? He did a lot early on, and then he's kind of fallen off a little bit. He's kind of our super sub if we need pace to get behind the defense. I would like to see him get a little bit more of a chance in the same way that Kai and Ziyech have been given a chance to show what they have. But if you're looking at all three of them, I think Timo's kind of the odd man out.
God, you're generous, because I've thought he's done absolutely nothing since he had his run of form. But a quick question came to my mind. Does your statement, Matt, mean we've been too hard on Rom? Is Rom's form or his best days in a Chelsea uniform ahead of him, maybe a year and a half into his tenure at the club?
I'm going to say no. And for a couple of reasons. A, Rom isn't young. He's supposed to be in his prime right now, 28, 29 years old. He's
Neither is
played in
Ziyech,
the Premier League. He's played in the Premier League. He knows what to expect. Ever since that, we all know the interview, ever since that happened, he's just, I don't know where he is. He's just a body that we kind of throw out there. The other thing is that the other three don't have the price tag that Rom does. Right? We got Ziyech for, realistically, we got Ziyech for being a creator. We got Timo for being able to score goals and create chaos. And we got Kai also as a creator. I'm seeing what I expected out of Ziyech and Kai right now. Timo, I really do think he needs more of a chance. I don't like Mace on the left. I prefer Timo out there. Just his work rate, and just wear down a defense for 70, 80 minutes and then bring on Mace or Christian or Cho or whoever else. And then let fresh legs go at him. Rom has a ridiculous price tag, and he has not earned it at all right now. So I think that in that regard, those 2 points, I think that Rom's best days in a Chelsea jersey are behind him.
Let me tag on to that, because I completely agree. And I think the main difference is, using Ziyech as the example of a guy who's in his prime but has kind of turned it around. Ziyech never went to another news source and said, "Fuck you, Chelsea." He has never said, "I'm going back to Ajax. Everything was better at Ajax. The food in the cafeteria was better at Ajax. The pitch was better at Ajax. My friends are at Ajax." No, but Rom did. And so Rom forever and always will have at least a third of this fan base booing him every time he touches the ball. Ziyech doesn't have that. Ziyech has the support because we've seen growth in him. Rom, even if he develops, it's hard to say develops at that age and his price tag, but even if he comes along, if he gets back into form, he's pissed off so many people. That pressure is always going to be there for him. He's never going to lose that pressure. And I don't think he's a guy who deals with pressure well. That's why he thrived in Serie A.
I just wanted to open-ended the question just because we're talking about guys coming into a system not doing well, and then maybe a year and a half kind of finding their own, and we're singing the praises. And I don't think we would have been singing their praises like this, especially Kai, 6 months into their stint at Chelsea. You know, they had kind of rocky starts. The lot of them did, right? Especially Ziyech. I think even earlier this year, people were saying Ziyech is the worst player out there. How does he get game time? Like, why is he out there? And now February, he was the player of the month. So I just wanted to answer. I don't think he's going to turn it around either. I just figured I would offer up the question to the group.
Well, and one other thing is that if you look at the three, Timo, Kai, and Ziyech, they've never played in the Premier League before. It's an entirely different league, right? So you need time to adjust to that. So you have to give them the benefit of the doubt on that. Rom, no, sorry. You've been in this league for a majority of your career. There's no excuse.
So I want to flip it to one other guy who has mixed results, honestly. And that's Christian Pulisic. Because even if we take this week as a small sample size, we've seen the best of Pulisic and we've seen the worst of Pulisic. Today he had a couple, he had the point blank miss right into Keller's arms, and he had the ball to Mason, I think it was.
Yeah.
But outside of that, he was a ghost on the pitch. He really wasn't that involved. But against Lille, he was the focal point. Him and Kai, they look great. It was, a lot of people announcing the return of Pulisic there. What do we make of him? What is he? It's such an anomaly this year at this point, because he's had such highs and such lows, and there's never any middle ground. Matt, what do you think we have in Pulisic?
I think we have three things. One is American viewership, right? You have an American playing in the Premier League. Yeah, everybody is going to watch him to see how he does. He is, quote unquote, the face of the U.S. men's national team. Yeah, you're gonna watch him. You want to see what he does. Second thing, the injuries. They have plagued him so much since he has come to Chelsea. It is ridiculous. And that is a combination of him being at Chelsea and also him with the U.S. men's national team. It almost seems like the old adage of like all the weight that he is trying to carry has almost broken him, right? He's trying to carry the U.S. men's national team. He's trying to be, the American hope in the Premier League. He's carrying a lot of pressure by doing that. And eventually something's going to break. And with Christian, we see something breaking a lot, whether it's a hamstring or an ankle or some sort of injury. The third thing is you see all of the imperfections with Christian Pulisic, right? At Dortmund, you didn't really see it. You didn't really hear a lot about it, right? Yeah, he would have good games. Yeah, he's playing in the Bundesliga. Cool. He's playing for Dortmund. Wonderful. Nobody ever really talked about his off games. Nobody ever really talked about, if he had a good match or not. It was whether he scored a goal or assisted a goal. You have more eyes on the Premier League. You're going to get criticized a lot more for every little thing that you do, positive and probably 10 times more negative. I think that is a big shock to him. And I don't know that he's able to kind of handle that pressure. I think that is one of the things that nobody ever saw at Dortmund. I don't think that anybody could have predicted that it would have happened in the Premier League at Chelsea. But it is what it is, right? He does have a good game every now and again. I mean, we saw against Lille, he was probably man of the match. I think Conte ended up winning it or something, but Christian played well, especially when he fell into that position, between the midfield and the defense. When he was able to open up that space and just kind of go nuts, or even against Palmeiras, he was able to do all that stuff. Like, yeah, you can maybe chalk it up to system, sure, but I think that eventually all this pressure is getting to him, and I kind of think his best role is probably a sub in like your 75th minute, fresh legs, going at a tired defense.
So that's the point where I disagree with you here, is the best role as a sub. I think we've seen, based on his role in CONCACAF with the US team and with Chelsea, he's at his best when he's one of the guys, like I mentioned earlier, he needs to be a week in and week out starter. He needs to be somebody who is consistently on the pitch, getting those reps, building that confidence. That even at Dortmund, yes, he was being subbed on and off, but he was playing consistently every week. Here at Chelsea, he's missed, 3 weeks at a time, 4 weeks at a time, whether to injury or whether just because his form is awful. Chelsea's not the club for that. We've seen it. Chelsea needs a big squad. We play 60 matches a year. There's going to be squad rotation. There's going to be world-class players who are honestly probably better than he is. I don't think Chelsea's the right place for him. I think honestly, either going back to the Bundesliga, going to La Liga, going to Serie A. No, probably not Serie A. That may not be a good fit, but going to a lesser league, a good team on a lesser league, would probably be the best place for him, unfortunately.
So I'll kind of counter that. I agree. I do think that he needs more consistent playing time. I'm all on board for that. The problem is he's going to get injured, right? We've seen it before. You run him probably a month straight and he's going to get injured, whether it's with Chelsea or because of the national team. He's unfortunately one of those players that is very injury prone. I mean, he does take a lot of contact in the Premier League. We've seen that. We know how sketchy CONCACAF is and some of the challenges that go on there. So we know how that goes. You're not seeing that with, a lot of these people that play over in Europe or things like that. So a lot of them are, I don't want to call them safe, but they're relatively less likely to sustain big injuries when they go on international duty. I just think that Christian is almost too injury prone to where you can't run him day in, day out. Otherwise, something's going to happen, right? We've seen it with the hamstring numerous times. We've seen it with the ankle numerous times. It's hard to justify your day in, day out spot when you have a history of being injured and being out for months at a time.
Probably the question I get asked the most as a Chelsea fan, especially an American Chelsea fan, is what do you make of Christian? And I never know how to answer this question properly, but I mean, you guys hit most of the high points. He is an inconsistent player at the highest level who, has really great moments, but he's not the right fit for Chelsea. And it breaks my heart to say it, because I love watching him and I love his great moments, but I don't know, just not the fit we need and just not the consistency. And I mean, injuries have been a problem for him. And then Matt, you said it great too, with just confidence. I think when he knows that he doesn't have to be the guy every single week, when he knows other great players are around him and he doesn't have all of this internal pressure on, he gets to take a deep breath. I think he's great. I think he's a wonderful player. And when he can play in his own system and play in his own kind of wheelhouse of tricks and things and whatnot, you see him pop up and do what he does best. He's great. We just don't see it. And we've had a large enough sample size now where I think you can chalk it up to it's not going to work. Sorry, I wish it was better news than that.
So do we think, so here's a quick question. Do we think that who's the better US in the Premier League? Christian or Josh Sargent? Who do we think is better fit for the Premier League?
Better fit. Man, that's such a hard one because Sargent's playing for such a trash team that it's hard to get a gauge on. I know he's had a good couple weeks here, but he also had like 5 months where he was probably the worst signing in the Premier League.
Well, I mean, Christian's had that same run too.
That's
But
true.
he plays for Chelsea.
I mean, I think if you put Sargent on like a Brentford, maybe. But I don't know. But Pulisic has shown more that he has skills than Sargent. But again, it's hard to judge Sargent when he has no one around him.
I think Christian's done more in his stint than Sargent. He's obviously been here longer, but I think Christian has shown more form than Josh Sargent has, even though it's recent come on from Josh. But I think if you put Christian on Norwich and you put Sargent on Chelsea, I think you see more out of Christian than you would out of Sargent. So if you flip the roles, I think Christian outperforms them in both situations.
Matt, what do you think?
I mean, Josh Sargent is doing a lot with nothing.
Fair.
He really is. He's doing a lot with nothing. And Christian's not doing a ton with everything. It's kind of how I look at it. Again, you have to look at the price tags, things like that. So living up to the price tag, I don't think Christian has, I think he's maybe lived up to half of this price tag.
I mean, to be fair, he did score the goal that sent us into the Champions League final. So maybe that pays for the other half.
Hey, Homer, lock it up over there. All right. We can't keep this. Oh, well, he scored this goal. Okay, he's paid to score a lot more goals than just that goal.
Right, that was a very expensive goal.
Next question.
Well, our next question actually is a listener question. This one comes from at Lennox_10_. Great listener. Love interacting with them on Twitter. Made us the official podcast of the Edward Mendy fan club.
Woohoo!
And we'll
appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll get to Mendy in a minute here. But he wants to know, what was worse today, the finishing or the officiating?
I'll defer to you boys on this.
Personally, I thought the finishing, just because I thought the officiating was relatively consistent. It was poor, but I thought both teams had their moments of not being super happy with the ref. So if that's the case, I generally chalk it up to meh or kind of a wash. We talked about it ad nauseum, so we don't have to talk about finishing again. But man, this is such a different game if we finish. So, and that's the stuff that we can control. I don't like the talk about who's reffing whose match. I hate when 3 weeks out they're like, oh, this person's reffing the Liverpool Chelsea match. Like, whoop-de fucking do. I don't care. I can't control that, and I can't control how he's gonna look at the game. I can't control anything. I'm no spectator, but as a fan, you want your team that you support, they control the stuff, right? They're the guys who do the preparations, who go through the training and do the stuff. And that's what we watch as fans. And that's the stuff that like you can control on the pitch is how the team responds to things. And so finishing is an us issue. It's not a external issue or a third party issue, I guess. So for me, it was finishing.
We've talked about consistency in officiating numerous times. And we've all said, as long as it's consistent, good or bad. If it's consistently bad, then it's consistently bad for both sides all the way around. I can live with that. The finishing on the Chelsea part, again, like Parker said, we've beaten the hell out of that point. We have to do better.
The only call that I would say was that Rom offside was probably the one suspect call that his elbow was offside. You could look at that as the one probably big disappointing call that was made against us. But yeah, sorry, Matt.
No, you're good. Yeah, I would just say like we've beaten the shit out of it. We have to finish. We have to control what we can control. We can't control the official. We don't know what the hell is going on. We don't know what game he's going to call. And all three of us, having played volleyball, what is the one thing that we all know? Never let the official determine the outcome of a game. Never let one call determine the outcome of a game. And that's essentially, I wouldn't say that's what happened, but you capitalize on two of those opportunities, we're home free. It's just a matter of we're just not doing our part, and that's probably the most frustrating thing for us right now.
You guys are right. We have talked ad nauseum about the finishing. The officiating was garbage. It was terrible. Naby Keita should have been sent off. Not necessarily on the stomp on Trev's thigh, which later it came out on Twitter. Trev said he had to go to the hospital and get stitches for afterward. Not just for that, but that should have been a yellow. Keita should have been yellow carded earlier in the game as well. You look at the blow up between Havertz and Alexander Arnold. Stuart Atwell is lucky that did not turn into something else. He had no control over that. And then you look at the VAR decision to overrule Rom's goal. A lot of debate on that over what they were measuring. There was just a lot of little ticky-tack shit that added up to a lot. And granted, again, we should have finished. Absolutely, we should have finished 4 goals. But the amount of influence that Klopp and Liverpool have over officials is evident. It's evident every time we play them. They chirp at the officials all match, and then little ticky tack shit just doesn't get called, and that leads to bigger shit not getting called. And yeah, I'm no conspiracy theorist. Okay, I guess I am a little bit, but dude, there was something going on today, and it happens. It's English football. It's FIFA. It's all that good stuff. The officiating was garbage, and for me, that it was worse. It was more frustrating to watch than us hitting the post, because I'm used to us hitting the post.
So a couple things I will say real quick. Harvey Elliott, you can fuck right off. He's the one that escalated that whole thing into what it was, and he didn't get carded. He just got a talking to. I honestly thought Stuart Atwell was going to card Rudy. I'm like, for what? That's problem number 1. Number 2, I know Joe Mach is probably going to listen to this. TAA, he's one that started the whole thing, kicking legs out and shit like that. On the flip side, I do appreciate the head-to-head between Kai and TAA. Right? There were no headbutts. It was just 2 people going nose to nose, foreheads touched. They didn't say a word. They just went at each other, kind of sized each other up, and that was that. Then they both kind of walked away. It wasn't until Harvey Elliott came in, and then that's when things escalated. And then Milner got involved and like trying to go with Rudiger. It's like, okay, if anybody should get carded, it should have been Harvey Elliott. Somebody who wasn't even supposed to play, somebody who wasn't even in the 20 for the Liverpool squad until like 2 days before. I think he should have gotten a yellow, but he didn't if you want to give Rudy a yellow, okay, fine, whatever. He got in the middle of it like Rudy normally does whenever there's something about to blow up. He did, fine. I don't like the fact that I don't like it when an official does not have control over a game. And it was very evident that Stuart Atwell had no control over this game. It was very obvious.
I'm sorry to interrupt there.
No, I'm good.
You know what the telling thing was? I think it was about the 80th minute, or maybe it was into extra time, but where Jurgen Klopp complained about a call and demanded that Atwell come over and explain it to him. No, fuck you. There's a game going on. But why do we have to justify calls to Jurgen Klopp? Is it because he's going to blast you in the media the next day? Cool, like whatever.
If anything, he deserves a card because he was harping at the fourth official, and Stuart Atwell had to come over. Like, okay, you're stopping the game because you're complaining about something? No. Players complain all the time during a match. They do all the time. What makes you so special that you're the manager and you have to call the head official over, or you said something to the fourth official? Like, card him. They know better. To me, it is, I would expect the same thing to happen to Thomas Tuchel. If he's harping at the fourth official and the head official has to come over, I would expect a yellow. I would. That's just the way that it should be. If we're going to card players for dissent and other things like that, and if we have managers probably berating the touchline officials, card them. They'll get the message real quick, but you don't see that often. And that I don't like. And like I said, if Tuchel got it, fine. I agree with it. He should. I mean, he's in the ears just as much as any other manager. I'd be fine if he got a yellow, but they don't do that for whatever reason. They have no problem doing it with the assistant managers or whoever. Like, they have no problem carding them, but no, the managers of the team don't carry more weight. Card them. They'll get the idea. They'll shut up. It's very simple, and for whatever reason they don't do it. So what? They get blasted by the media because guess what? The managers are going to have to pay a fine anyways.
And a yellow card to a manager means absolutely nothing too. It's only if they were to get a second one that it would have any implication on the match. So give them a caution and say, you're done, like, relax. This is your warning. Like, we make this official, and then it kind of just sets the tone. Matt, to your point, it establishes control on a match. And I'm listening to you guys talk, and you make great points that I hear you when you're watching it in a very loud Brits pub where you don't get to hear the commentators talk as much, and you're more talking to your the people on your left and right after a play, and not necessarily the refs as much. So we didn't talk about the refs hardly at all during the match, and so that's, I think, where my answer kind of comes from. But I don't disagree with you, Collins, especially on the 3 or 4 calls that kind of went against ours. So it was tough.
Go ahead.
Sorry. One other side note. I was watching the Everton Man City game, and at the end of it, Ashley Cole got a yellow for talking to the officials and just going off. So you have no problem pulling a yellow after the match on an assistant manager or assistant coach. You have no problem pulling a yellow. That to me is absolutely stupid. Granted, it was Kevin Friend, I believe, saw it, and I'm not surprised. But at the same time, really, what the hell purpose is that going to serve to give an assistant coach a yellow after the whistle's been blown, after everybody's shaking hands and doing whatever? What purpose does that serve? None. Absolutely none. The game's already over. The fact that you can give cards after the fact is absolutely asinine.
So we're going long here, and listener, just you have to know it was a crazy week, and we're probably gonna have a lot to talk about on Flake here at Pot After Dark as well here, but there's one more thing I wanted to touch on, and it's transitioning away from this Carabao Cup match, or it may tie in, depending on how you view the situation. But our friend the Badger Hopper, first of all, coaches volleyball in the Faroe Islands, won the cup this weekend. Congratulations to him on that. He was curious to know our thoughts on Roman Abramovich's statement, which came out, what was that, Saturday? Then for those of you who haven't heard it, I'll read it to you now. Directly from Roman Abramovich himself. Quote, "During my 20-year ownership of Chelsea FC, I've always viewed my role as a custodian of the club, whose job it is ensuring that we are as successful as we can be today, as well as build for the future, while also playing a positive role in our communities. I've always taken decisions with the club's best interest at heart. I remain committed to these values. That is why I am today giving trustees of Chelsea's charitable foundation the stewardship and care of Chelsea FC. I believe that currently they are the best in the position to look after the interests of the club, players, staff, and fans." There's a lot in there, but it's also quite an ominous statement. Like there's not a lot of substantial fact. There's a lot left to the imagination. To be fair, we've all come up in the Roman Abramovich era. That I don't think any of us were fans before Roman, and so he's been the everlasting presence, and then now he's not away from the club, he's just not running the club? Question mark. What do you guys make of the statement? What do you, in the global grand scheme of things, what does this mean? What's the end game for Roman here?
I want to know your take on this one, because if anyone is qualified with your background in Russian history and whatnot, I want to hear what you have to say, because I know you have a little bit more context to it than Matt and I probably do combined.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I drank my way through college and got a Russian history major, or a degree, which serves me well working in the field that I'm in right now. Man, it's a complicated, the whole Russia-Ukraine thing is a very complicated situation. I do like to keep up to date on it. Up to date on kind of global politics, stuff like that. I did write my senior thesis on Roman Abramovich, which was a joy to write. So I've always been a big fan of his, and honestly, he does have ties to Putin. They're friends, dating back several years now. Abramovich was appointed governor of a state in Russia for a long time, in which he did a lot of great things in this very remote rural state. So again, it's all very, it depends on how you read it, kind of things. There's been a lot of talk in Russian parliament this week about sanctions, as there has been all across the globe. But Abramovich, because of his Israeli and Portuguese citizenship, in addition to his Russian citizenship, has been exempted from those sanctions. But there have been calls for him specifically to be added on because of his previous ties with Putin. My hope, and this was my initial hope, it was that the move to do this means that you can't sanction, the government can't come in and take something owned by a charity, which the club effectively is. Well, I take that back. No one, the board of trustees hasn't approved it yet. But if this all goes through, the government shouldn't be able to go in and take something from a charity. Smart move. Roman playing 4D chess. But we're also seeing smoke now of particularly American investors lining up bids for the club, which is valued at over $2 billion. Alex Rodriguez, stay the fuck away from my club. But that may be that's what's kind of grown in my mind over the last couple of days, has been, Roman's stepping back. He's making the club more appealing for a sale, get more money back. In his investment, it's very common knowledge that he made a $1 billion loan to the club, and that's kind of like his little safe stash. I hope he's not selling. I love Roman Abramovich. I have so much. I could do a whole pod on Roman Abramovich, honestly, and I'm finding it hard to limit this here, but I'm hoping that this is just kind of a temporary measure, but I kind of fear that it's not.
Parks?
Yeah, first words that came to my mind were purposefully vague, strategically vague, if you will. Says enough without saying a ton, and it leaves us all kind of guessing what's next. I'm with you, Collins. I've enjoyed Roman's leadership from the club's perspective for a long time, and even though it has led to managers having a really short leash, which hasn't been my favorite thing as a supporter, I think he always has the club's best interest at heart. And even if he didn't write that statement, even if that was a PR stunt or publicity, whatever, the statement as it reads tells me one thing, which we've talked about on this podcast before, which is one of my favorite parts about this club, and that is no one person is bigger than the club. Even if he doesn't mean it the way that I'm reading it, even if it wasn't his words, I still believe that to be true. I believe that this club is an organization that embodies a lot more than just one person. He's obviously going to be talked about forever as a massive individual part of the club, but he is not bigger than the club, and he will not take the club down, and he still will do what's best for the club. And I trust that. I trust that, he thinks that way, and I trust that the people around him think that way, and that, even if it is just about money, Collins, to recoup some of his investment, I don't care. It's still the right thing. If at the end of the day he does have to leave as an owner, to put the club in the best light is still the best, way of doing it. So I hope this dies down. I hope that this is just a temporary measure and kind of fills the gap for the time being, and that he doesn't have to sell. But if he does, then we'll get on with it, right? We don't talk about Roman every week. We talk about Tuchel and the boys, and we talk more about Marina than we do about Roman Abramovich. The people who are actively doing the work, that we see on the pitch. So he's been in the shadows for a long time, and we don't always see him on a day-to-day basis. So, Matt, what do you make of the whole thing?
Out of all three of us, I'm probably the least political. So I'm, politics are politics. The big thing that I've heard that I think plays a role in this, and we could probably easily tie it back to today's match with the Carabao Cup, is the UK was freezing basically Russian assets from Russian banks. I don't know where Abramovich keeps his money. I don't think anybody knows. But if he does have things tied up in Russian bank accounts, then you run into the situation of, well, if everything's tied up there and those accounts are frozen, how do you pay your players? How do you pay your staff? How do you pay basically anybody in the club? That has to weigh heavy on everybody, right? If all of us, if our boss was Russian and all of his, or if we worked for a Russian company and everything, all of a sudden, all the accounts are frozen, so we can't pay you. That's going to be a bit of an issue. So I think that does play into it. And if that is the case, then all credit to the boys for putting on a hell of a display today, because they had a lot on their mind. Again, if that was the case. I wouldn't say I'm overly surprised by it. To me, it seems like one of those things where it is a cover your ass type situation, just to make sure that things don't get out of control. And we have to remember, to Roman Abramovich, Chelsea Football Club is an asset, right? It is an asset under his name. So he's trying to do, so I think he's trying to do what's best to protect his assets and his investment that he's made to the club. I think that he is doing the sensible thing. I'm not going to call it the right or wrong thing. I think he's doing the sensible thing. I don't like the idea, Collins, as you put it, of American owners. I really don't, because they have no idea what it takes to run a successful Premier League club. We've kind of seen that with Man United and Ed Woodward, like
Arsenal
and Arsenal. Yep. Like, we've seen it. They are normally billionaires who have like an NFL or some other sort of franchise that, yeah, fine, they can run it, but it's a completely different animal across the pond. It really is. And to have just American investors do it just to have it and not actually care about it, that bothers me a lot. Roman is somebody who, as we know, over the past few years, he's had issues with, getting to games, and despite all of his citizenships, he's been having issues getting into games and things like that. So I think it was kind of a fight or flight moment. And I think he made the sensible decision to protect himself and also protect his asset, which is Chelsea Football Club.
And I want to leave it with this, because again, Roman is somebody who, for somebody I've never met, somebody who's very near and dear to me. He's the owner of our club. He's invested so much of his wealth into our enjoyment. And not only that, but regardless of stance on the war, which he has not himself come out and publicly said, he seems like a very good person. Again, I mentioned that he was appointed governor of a very rural state in Russia, where he pumped hundreds of millions of dollars of his own money into building highways and building schools and building kindergartens, but giving money to farmers. During COVID, he pumped a crazy amount of money into the local community around Chelsea in SW6 for outreach for people who needed food, who needed rent assistance, things like that. He's a very philanthropic man, and he's done a lot. So regardless of stance on the war, Mr. Abramovich, I salute you. All right.
What a way to end. Yeah, what a way to wrap that bow up, Collins. Well said.
Also, I'm gonna throw a plug, because for Pod After Dark, I do have a conspiracy theory question for one Andrew Collins.
Yay!
So please make sure you check out Pod After Dark to listen to all the shithousery that's going to ensue.
Pod After Dark released on Thursdays, so make sure to check where you listen to your podcasts: Anchor, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, Google. I can go on forever, anywhere. Outside of that, make sure that you subscribe, rate, and review. Again, it helps spread the word about the good word that we put out. On top of that, if you want to follow us, you can follow us on social media. On Twitter, you can follow me, Andy, at Comiskey North. You can follow Parker at DJ Parkour. You can follow Matt at Matus Lee. You can follow the club, or not the club, the I always screw something up in this. You can follow the pod at Flag Down Pod. We love interacting with fans and listeners. It's one of the joys of this. So if you ever have any questions, we had a couple questions come in today. If there are any questions, shoot us a DM, shoot us a message on any social media, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Otherwise, boys, again, it's been a crazy week. I appreciate you guys being my therapists, and let's get going into some pod after dark, huh?
Amen to that. And after a crazy day, I just thought that it was an awesome match, and it was an awesome atmosphere to watch it live. And it was a great time. It was a great day to be a Chelsea fan, even though we didn't win. And I'm still proud of the club and still proud of the boys for the effort that they put in. So I'll end on that note, just saying it was a hell of a day, and it was a fun time, and it was a great match, and a great pod. So cheers, boys.
Cheers to that. Up to Chelsea.
Cheers.
I'm all potted out.